Many of you know him as J.J. Flannigan, the football star, but this is the story of James Flannigan III, whose family escaped Jim Crow South in Alabama to move to South Central L.A., about a young man who took up football to escape the hood, and ultimately about a young man who walked away from all of that to live a real life. Introducing James Flannigan III. James Flannigan III,
Nice.
aka JJ Flannigan. Brother, it is good to talk to you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I can't complain. You know what? Every day is a learning experience for me, and so I cherish every day. So I'm doing wonderful. Family's great, and I can't complain.
Yeah, brother, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I'm one of the old heads who followed you young brothers and took pride in all the things y'all did. And I feel blessed to be able to have a conversation with you today, man. So I thank you for that in advance. Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate it, and like I said, anything for you, anything for to bring enlightenment to experiences in our lives, and I'm always there for that.
Well, let me not waste any time. Let me get started. Man, tell me a little bit about the family. Tell me about the people who made you you.
Wow, as you mentioned, I'm James Flannigan III. So, and really unfortunate. I really wish a lot of us could go back further some than our grandparents and great grandparents because a lot of our history is lost. But I come my family's from a small town in Alabama called Utah, Alabama,
Oh my goodness.
and which is not too far from Tuscaloosa, and of course everybody knows where Birmingham is. But that's where my family is originally from. My grandfather was, I believe, one or two, the first black man to be a sheriff in the state of Alabama.
Mm.
And so always been proud of that history with my grandfather. And my dad, James Flannigan Jr., as soon as he graduated high school, he left and came to California to live with his aunt and uncle
Mm.
to start his life outside of Alabama. And the funny thing about it is that my mom is also from the same area, but they didn't know each other in Alabama.
Huh.
They met when they got to when he got to California. My mom had been in California. My grandmother also did one of those great migrations
Yeah.
and got out of Alabama, and my mom got there when she was 7 years old. So she had been there since she was seven. And but my grandmother knew who my grandfather on my father's side was because he was a sheriff out there, and and
Okay.
everybody knew Sheriff Flannigan,
But
and so my father's aunt and uncle introduced my mom and dad
mhm.
at a young age, and they were married when he was 19. She was 18 years old. I have two older brothers. I was I was a third child. My mom was 22 years old. It's almost unthinkable.
Mm.
Nowadays, it's like 22 years old, and already got three kids, and
Yeah.
but we lived in South Central Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and the story, as my mom says, that I was the reason why they had to leave LA. And so I was inquisitive. I always wanted to be around other people and find out what other people were like,
Hmm.
and some of those people weren't always great. And this is
Yeah.
young. Like I said, I
Yeah.
left LA when I was like six, and we
Wow.
moved to a city east of LA called
Okay.
Pomona, California. Most people only hear that name if they hear Jessica Alba's from Pomona. She went to my high school. Sugar
Ah.
Shane Mosley, the boxer,
Okay.
went to high school with me. Um, and things like that. So that's who the most famous people come out of Pomona, I always say. But
Hmm.
that's where I ended up going to high school, and elementary school, junior high school, and high school, and I got my life started there.
Now tell me about growing up there. I mean, and I want to go back up a little bit. Talk about why your parents left Alabama. Was it looking for opportunity? What was their reason? What did they tell you? And what did they remember about Alabama?
My grandmother, on my mom's side, my grandmother, she was adamant from what my mom says. She did not want her children to grow up in that environment.
Hmm.
Whites only water fountains and bathrooms and restaurants, and couldn't go into hotels. And she didn't want that life for her children.
Hmm.
And so she packed up my mom, and and moved to California. From my mom's at early age, for her at 7, and just to start a new life. My father, um, always knew from what he said. He knew he didn't want to be in that environment, and not saying that any other place was greater than the next. It was different for us black, for black people then, and to make sure that their children didn't have to live the way they did or experience some of the things that they did. And of course, we're all going to experience our own things, as we'll talk about, but
Hmm.
they didn't want us to experience that
Right.
and what was going on then. And so, though my father's parents, my grandfather, grandmother, my father's side, they stayed in Alabama. My mom's side moved to Alabama, moved to California, and of course, my dad followed. When he graduated high school.
Hmm. Now, for you growing up, what was talk about what it is you saw as first as a child in LA and what it is you saw when you got to Pomona. What was the difference for you?
You know, During that time of, I was born in 68.
Okay.
So we're talking about 71, 72. I mean, even slightly before I was born, it
Yeah.
wasn't great either. 65, my mom was pregnant with my brother during the Watts riots,
Yeah.
and they were right in the heart of the Watts riots, when she was pregnant with my brother. That's right. So it was it was difficult. I think I was so young that I didn't really understand, the things that was going on in LA. And after the riots, that's when the great change happened, and you started to see what we call now redlining,
Yeah.
of where we could live and where we couldn't live, and things like that. And so, you know, I show people a picture of where we lived in LA. It was 5 of us, and it looked like a box. Three boys in one room, my mom and dad in another, and it was tough. We had no space, and LA is really changing at that time. Like I said, since '65 with the Watts riots and things like that. And so we, I think, even amongst our melanated people, that we didn't even know who we could trust,
Yeah.
and things like that. And like I said, it was some difficult times, because I think the first, I think for my family, the first thing that there was uncertainty is, we don't have Martin Luther King. We don't have Malcolm X. Where are our
Right.
leaders? We don't.
Right.
In the Black Panther, the CIA dissolved that, off a lot of false things that they were saying that this group were doing, but yet they still use the same programs like WIC that
Hmm.
started with organizations like the Black Panthers. And so I think at that time they thought, well, maybe if we move further away from, we were still in LA County, but
Hmm.
we're about maybe 25 miles east of LA. Matter of fact, Pomona is the last county going east that's considered Los Angeles County.
Okay.
After that, then you in the San Bernardino County, and things like that. So just opportunity for her boys, that she wanted us to not have to go through the changes that was going on in LA. And of course, as I go back and we talk about the Black Panthers, when you start dissolving that, what they don't realize is, when you dissolve this type of organization, and now you have the gangs came right behind that.
Right.
And so now we're in the neighborhoods where all of a sudden the little place we lived in is being tagged, with graffiti, and it had gotten so bad. I'm assuming between that 68 and about 1975, before we finally left and went to Pomona. Um, tell the difference, I look at high school, elementary school pictures, where I'm like four or five of 4 or 5 black kids out of white white kids.
Hmm.
And you see the difference by the time I'm a senior in high school, where probably 75% of my high school was black. and it's all in the same area, and so times did change, but it changed when I think it was positive for us that we were out of the environment in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And even more than that, from my dad's side, it was the abuse of the police,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that he couldn't live with the fact that he could have moved us in a different area and possibly, not get us out of situations where he had been harassed by the police. His brothers have been harassed by the police, and and it was a. I see the videos of those
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yeah.
I mean, just people don't realize, they think this is like 2,000 years ago. This is 3 years before I was born that we were
Yeah.
getting water hoses and dogs sick on us. And so people think this is ancient history. And sometimes even even our Caucasian brothers and sisters need to be reminded that this wasn't that long ago, and that
Yeah.
some of these things and who we are part of our traumas,
Mm-hmm.
and our traumas that we have, and sometimes dictate who we become, and
Yeah.
don't seek the right, if we don't have that positive um, input coming into the home. And for me, that I was just, man, I thank the Most High that I was just fortunate enough to have both parents, you
Yeah.
know, in that household, because it would have been difficult.
What kind of lessons were they teaching you? How did they help you to navigate? I know sports was one outlet, but what kind of things did they help you do to just navigate your world? Just navigate day-to-day life.
Stay alive, and that's sad to say. Just those
Mm.
two words. How do I stay alive? How to navigate. I know it's a new thing now in the last 5, 10 years. But how to talk to the police was discussions in my household
Talk.
early age.
Yeah.
We're talking 19, at least 1981
Hmm.
for me. And it came increasingly more because I grew up in a generation. By the time I hit high school, crack is the big thing. And so we little old lady you saw, walking down the street, hey, Miss Jones, addicted to crack in a matter of time, and she don't even remember who you are. Um, that 82 to 86 was really tough. I mean, it was some tough times for everyone, even if you didn't feel like it was you directly. High school in 1982 to 86 was we literally saw a community change.
Mm.
Um, Lock your doors. We hung out at night. Remember the street lights when they come on home,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, um, when the drugs that was, and I will always say this and defend this and be unapologetic about it, when they dropped cocaine into our neighborhoods in the early '80s, um, and it changed the complexity of everything around us. And either you went to the drug side, the gang side, or you play sports.
Mm.
And if you play sports, you were protected by both of those sides.
Mm.
And that ended up being my route in life, because I saw friends. You didn't know from 82 to 86, you didn't know when you said bye to someone on Friday if they were going to be alive and at school on Monday. And that was hard, to lose friends to that. And that's either dropping out of school, or death, or jail, or prison. You didn't know who you were going to see again. And that completely changed from 74 or 75 when I moved to Pomona to 82, which
Hmm.
is not very long,
Yeah.
6, 7 years, and everything had changed. And so, um, for me, like I said before, that I was one of the fortunate ones who had a father and a mother in the home, and um, doing everything they can to make sure that we stayed on the right path.
Mm. So you're in high school now. When do you start thinking? When you were what did you want to be? I mean, you're in high school, and you're starting to, young men are starting to think about their futures. I want to be this, I want to be that. What did you want to be when you were in high school?
I actually thought that I was going to be the next Jesse Owens.
Mm,
I love track. Football was not, I liked the sport of football and I used to watch football. But remember, the Olympics came in '84 to
mm-hmm.
Los Angeles,
Oh
and I
yeah.
got a chance to see Carl Lewis and all these great athletes coming to my city, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And all I cared about was running track, and I wanted to do everything I can to be in that Coliseum one day,
Mm,
somewhere. And so my early days was just track and field. It wasn't until probably my sophomore year in high school. And so I tell people that all the time because I'm like, you don't go to my mom's house or even see pictures of my house of little league pictures of me in little helmets and play. I was track. I wanted to run track, and that was
mm,
my only thing I wanted to do. And by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I played. Everybody played freshman football just to be on the team, but I did that just to stay busy.
yeah.
My goal was at the end of that school year when track season started, and I was one of the fastest guys in the city, and going to these relays, and I think for me because and I have let me go back and I want to make sure I say this. I want to be always be truthful in everything I talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about the sports, but the lure of that life on the streets was hard. You seeing your friends who had nothing, all of a sudden they driving around in nice cars and nice clothes and jewelry and they were getting the benefits I felt of life right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're I'm doing this sport hoping to get there in 12 years, and I'm watching these guys with money in their pockets and having a good time and I thought I wanted that. I thought
Mm,
I wanted that life. And 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 once again, even then, people think that people are such bad people because of what they decide to do in life.
mm-hmm.
My friend said, no, this is not your journey. Wouldn't let me hang around. Would kick me out the house when something was getting ready to go on.
Wow.
I could barely drive. Hey, JJ, take the keys. You got to go. Never allowed me to even be around in situations that could get me caught up. And I say this, and I really mean this. I truly felt like I had angels around me because my life could have went that direction
Yeah.
easily because of who I was. Oh, JJ, here's something to get you started, and you can be one of the biggest dope dealers in Pomona. But my friends wouldn't allow me to do that, and they guys who end up being one of the biggest dope dealers in our city who's still a friend of mine today, and he's got his life changed around and this and that. And he just told me this weeks ago. He said he felt like they felt like I was the one that was going to represent them getting out of here.
Mm,
And so I just always had that type of positive energy around me growing up, but it was still difficult to make the decisions because
mm-hmm.
my I don't go to Colorado. I can't afford to go to these schools.
Right.
I would have student loans in junior college.
Yeah.
And that would have been my path. And not saying that that's terrible because a lot of us make it on that path too.
Mm-hmm.
And but by the time my sophomore year was ending, matter of fact, it was my sophomore year um, when we had a new high school coach that came to Pomona High School,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, while I was actually standing on the track waiting for the baton to come on a 4x100 relay, are you JJ Flannigan? I go, yes. He go, I want you to play football for me. I said, nah, this is my thing right here, man. This is what I do. I run track. And he said, all right. I spent that whole summer after my sophomore year, um, with him. And when they said sometimes life changes over just a no-name kid who you can look at the track articles in the newspaper, it'll just say James Flannigan.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, my junior year, I was JJ Flannigan. And
Mm,
I went my junior year with, I think I was like second leading rusher in the state of California.
mm.
And I tell people that, I tell my kids that, I'm like, do you understand how many high schools in the state of California?
No worry, you were good.
And but this is from a kid who didn't even want to play the sport. I was just doing it
Yeah,
because I didn't want to let this coach down,
yeah,
and he had spent a lot of time with me, and making sure that I was prepared, not just for football, for track, but even
yeah.
more than that. Coach Lucas, uh, he's the guy who saved my life. He's the guy who saved my life because now I got a mentor outside of my home. I had
Mm,
my father was great. Now I got a mentor outside of my home
mhm,
who's also making sure that I'm making the right decisions,
mm.
and would even tell some of the guys that was on our football team who were selling drugs and in gangs, stay away from JJ.
Wow.
Stay away from him. And I don't know why I hadn't done anything special. I was just a guy who wanted to do some things in track, and all of a sudden my life changed, and
Mhm.
it was hard for a little while because I went from somebody that no one hardly knew, and then I'm all of a sudden doing newspaper articles. I'm 16 years old, and I'm on
Wow.
TV, and I'm doing sports interview, newspaper articles and things like that, and then all of a sudden the schools, and so not my older brothers. I'm the youngest of three, and so I didn't get even to see this life or what was happening to me, even through the lenses of my brothers.
Yeah.
And so I felt like I was out there alone sometimes, but it was an incredible journey back then, and people don't understand they didn't have rules back then. My decision to stay out of the gang life and the drug life and running the streets, because I also had friends who became pimps. Um, uh, and so you know to for me to make sure that everything I did, I was making sure I was preparing myself for where I am now. And everyone is everyone is where they are based off decisions. And I learned that at an early age. My choices in life will dictate what happens.
Yeah.
And if I continue to do the right things, and and be nice and just be the person that who I am, life would be where I needed to be. And so far in high school, that's what's going on.
Right.
Um, I have a great junior year, and of course I'm heavily recruited. And I'm Gatorade National Player of the Year, and all these awards and honors are coming. And then go through my senior year and the same thing, and everything is great. And I'm thinking that, man, people really, really like me.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
Colorado,
Yep.
and then life hits.
Now,
You
talk
know,
about that move. How you got from from California to Colorado? Because that wasn't where you were really trying to go at first, was it?
no, no, no. Let's talk about that. My senior year in high school, my then girlfriend, we got pregnant, and I'm in the middle of my recruiting year in high school, and I got a baby getting ready to be born in March.
Mm.
I'm supposed to sign with a school in February. I got a baby born in March, and I'm supposed to be taking off to go to school by the end of the year. And I had been recruited by Notre Dame and USC and UCLA and everyone around me, of course, all of the Pac-10. Um, about maybe only Nebraska and Oklahoma out of the Big Eight. And actually, the way I chose my school, can I tell you the real story how I chose the school I was
Yeah.
going to?
Yeah. How did I mean you weren't even on the radar, man. So what
No,
and
no,
it wasn't
no,
like
no,
CU was those guys.
no, no, not at all. Not at all. My high school coach, who I told you got me started, who really saved my life in high school, Colorado was smart. Bill McCartney was smart. What he did was that year I rushed over 2,000 yards, 32, 33 touchdowns, uh, hired him right from up under me.
Wow.
So my senior year, I didn't have Coach Lucas as my mentor anymore. He wasn't my coach anymore. And of course I'm thinking, okay, well, great. That's a great opportunity for him. But come to find out that, hey, if we want to get this guy, let's
We
get
got
this
to
guy
we got to get
first.
that guy.
We got to get that guy. I didn't know that at the time, at first, and so, of course, like I told you, go back, my high school girlfriend she was pregnant. And I went on and committed to USC. I might as well stay home,
Mhm.
play my college sports. I got my baby to raise and be a part of his life. And um, so that was going to be my decision. And Coach Mac had other plans. He said, "Oh, we got remember the family housing that they had back there by our old practice
Yep,
fields."
yep,
And
yep.
he
Newton
said, "We're
Court
going
and
to
the
put
other
you
ones.
there,
Yeah.
and we're going to bring her here, and she's going to finish school, and she's going to be able to work for the university, and this and that." But I still was committed to USC. I was going to stay there. USC messed up. I take my trip to Michigan. All I told USC was, "I'm coming there. Don't tell anybody else. I just want to be able to travel as this young kid and see these different schools and experience, have that experience."
Hmm.
I get to Michigan and I'm not in a meeting no more than 5 minutes. Bo Schembechler says, "So I hear you committed to USC." USC couldn't keep their mouth closed. They told everybody
Oh my goodness.
that I was coming to USC. Like, I could have been there.
Hmm.
USC don't do that. I'm probably me and you are not talking on this phone.
Hmm.
And so uh, that's the decision I made. I came home from Michigan, told my dad what happened, what Bo Schembechler said to me. And I said, "I'm not going to USC." All I told him to do was just let me take my trips. I had never even been on an airplane. And we couldn't afford none of that stuff. We drove to Alabama from
Mm.
California, from Los Angeles
Wow.
for
That's some
vacations.
driving. Yeah.
We couldn't afford that kind of stuff. And so it was just and so therefore I came back and I decommitted from USC. And I just finally, sat down, talked to Coach Lucas. I'm like, Colorado ain't really done nothing.
Yeah.
I ain't even, you couldn't go into a store and find a Colorado hat,
Nothing.
even a store with thousands of college sports gear. See no Colorado stuff out there, And so, but one thing that Coach Lucas did say to me, "You can go to USC and you'll just be another great player there. But you can come to CU and you can change the whole culture. You
Mm.
can change a program that had nothing and be remembered for a long time here. USC uh, USC was the talk of the town growing up. You don't leave LA, you know, and with USC and UCLA in your backyard. I think
Yeah.
the biggest star that did that to me was Jamil Holloway.
Yeah.
He left LA and went to Oklahoma. I was like, what? And then he's all of a
Hmm.
sudden he's the national championship game his freshman year, and it's like, well, okay, well, maybe leaving a state is not so bad, you know.
Hmm.
And so that was all going on during my senior year in high school, but I did. I wanted to go. I ended up wanting to say, you know what? Maybe I can come to this school and I can make a difference, and I can I can be a part of a program and that will people will remember for a long time.
Hmm.
And so that was one of the main reasons why I chose to go there. I took a recruiting trip there, um, and it was cold. I don't remember doing a whole lot. I remember going to someone's bachelor party. When we get off this phone one of these days, I'm gonna tell you who that was. I cannot remember. One of the CU guys was having a bachelor party, and I sat around with a lot of the guys, and the starting running backs at that time were Mike Marquez
Yep.
and Sam Smith. And Mike Marquez told me, and I tell him this story all the time. I told him this story last time I saw him a few months ago. I said, "You're one of the reasons why I came here also." He said, on that recruiting trip, he said, "I'm just going to tell you straight up, JG, you're better than us, faster than us, stronger than us, and we want to win, and we want you to come here. And this is a starting running back. You hear me?"
Hmm.
And this is a starting running back telling me to come there, knowing that I'm possibly going to take his position.
Wow.
And so me and OC kept in touch all during our recruiting season, and we both decided, hey, you know what? Let's change this program, man. Let's go see what we can do.
And
Let's really go
OC
see
was
what we
there.
can
He
do.
was there with you at Pomona.
Yeah, no, OC's from Houston.
Okay.
But when we took our recruiting trip, the very first week in December of 1985, we were roommates on a recruiting trip, and we're both
Okay.
were running backs, and we were
Yeah.
playing the wishbone offense, which had two running backs. So
Oh yeah.
so the original Alphabet Brothers, OC and JJ, was gonna come change the world in Boulder. That's what we thought. We was gonna change the world. But that was the main reasons why I wanted to give the school a chance. And
hmm
I didn't think about the culture. I don't think I thought one time how many black people were in the city of Boulder. I don't think I even crossed my mind one time.
hmm
I think that I thought people would be okay with me as long as I was playing sports and doing good in school. Life is just going to be great. And you know, as everybody knows, I've had some experiences. I've had some experiences that I've had to deal with. So I think that up until high school, before I got to Colorado, it's great. Football, people love you. You're going to do good for this school. You're going to get your degree, and but Brody, I wish they could have just prepared me, for what I was going to experience, because I just
Yeah.
thought that if you play sports, everything was just good.
So talk about that first day. You know, not the recruiting day, but you're coming there. You know you're going. This is where you're going to be for the next couple of years, several years.
Mhm.
And you'd already done the trip across 36, so that was already done. You already had that vision. But what was it like when you got there and realized this is where I'm going to be? And what was that day like?
Well, let me say this first. I was victim of me, Salinesi, and Oakland Salavea. We were victims of the very first year of Proposition 48.
Hmm.
Um, Here I am, a 3.8 GPA in high school. Never, so
Yeah.
I worked hard in school and I studied hard. Um, but then you put me in front of this test called the SAT, and you tell me something like, uh, "Here's a word I never heard of it, but now you got to give me the opposite of this word." And I'm just like, "Well, I don't know that I didn't test well. Math part of it, great, you know." So it was embarrassing coming to Colorado, because now this athlete who had all these yards and made all these touchdowns and all this publicity and all these honors, now I got people thinking that I'm just a dumb black athlete. That was, when I say I got to Colorado, when life hits me, because you know we were the first class of that, and no one was prepared to how to with us. We just sitting around, and now I can't be around my teammates. I can't be around the guys, practicing and in that weight room. They kept me separate from everything. Um, me, Sal, and Oakland had to figure it out on our own. Uh, it was a tough time that year, because now I want to prove to everybody that I'm not this dumb athlete. Learning how to balance school and social life and hanging out and girls, and uh, it was, that first semester was overwhelming. Here I am, the kid, and I'm trying to prove that I'm not the dumb kid that they think I am. Say T scores of this Proposition 48, and here I am sitting in my freshman year, first semester, with a 1.89 GPA.
Mm.
I'm better than this, and I knew I was better than this, and that started my transition to focus more on better in my life for the future than right now because I was just living life at that point in time. And I can't play football. I don't have, I'm not doing at that time, Brody, what I thought my purpose was.
Mm.
And at that time, at that young age, oh, my purpose is just to play football. The way things happened, I thought that was my purpose. I wasn't a little league football player. I played one great year in high school, or two great years, junior, senior year. And here I am, amongst all these, big schools recruiting me. And now I'm in Colorado. And so everything happened fast for me. And so my dad couldn't tell me how to prepare for being on campus because he never went to college. My
Mm.
mom couldn't prepare me for how to be on campus. She never went to college. My grandparents couldn't prepare me to be on a college campus. They never went to college. I'm that dude now.
Yeah.
And I don't have no instructions. All I got is people in my face praising me about football. And no one's telling me how to live my life. No one's telling me how to navigate.
Yeah.
And this is all on an 18-year-old kid. I'm 18, just turned 18 because I graduated high school at 17 and I
Mm.
turned 18 in September my freshman year, and I already had been there a month, and I'm lost.
Wow.
I'm lost. But just over time, you start to figure things out. You start to learn how to to doggy paddle in the water, and before you know
Mm.
it, you can swim. And so just when I'm starting to come to that point in time, you know, life hits you again, and now I'm dealing with the people of Boulder, the people of Boulder. Um, Man, these people, I thought, they love me. They cheer for me on Saturday. I didn't know they was not going to like me on Saturday night or Sunday morning. And, and, uh, and not just the people, the police and how they viewed us. And I think for the first time in my life as a sophomore in college, I said to them, I'm black.
Hmm.
You always know you're
Yeah.
black, you're from the
But
hood, you this and that, and
yeah,
I get it, I get it, and I get it. And I'm not trying to say I was oblivious to that. Um,
because you
but
saw it
now
in
I
LA.
realize,
Yeah, you saw it in California. You didn't think you'd see it in Colorado.
yeah, yeah, and I got reminded that it's just black. You're
Yeah.
a black kid. This is our world, and you're a black kid.
Oh, wow. So how did you navigate that? I mean, because like I said, first you're not even doing football. You're just a student. You're just trying to you'll get through and get by. You
Yeah.
get past that first year, you get into the second year, you're at least able to do what you came there to do.
Yeah.
How does it change, or does that change things for you?
My freshman year, it doesn't. It doesn't
Right.
change at all. Life for me didn't get back to some type of normalcy um, until my around my sophomore year.
Hmm.
And because I tell people all the time, my life is I can say it's in my life is in four quarters, just like in football.
Hmm.
That first quarter, my freshman year, and now going into the second quarter of my life, my sophomore year.
Hmm.
Um, I'm trying to pick up the pieces and learn how to get myself in school and focus on school and in the weight room and studying film and getting back to because I lost who I was for a whole year. As being away from the sport for a whole year was going to hinder who what I did on the field. And I thought, well, I'm athletic. I just turned it on. I wasn't able to turn that on.
Hmm.
And then I'm frustrated because I'm watching guys who weren't as good as me. And I'm saying this because this is what I truly felt that it was guys doing well in college that wasn't as good as me and Eric Bieniemy, and they were getting that. And that was Emmitt Smith. All of us are the same age. We all came out of high school the same time, same 1986. Harvey Williams, Emmitt Smith. And I'm watching these guys like, and then came down to I didn't. I was frustrated with our offense. It's a wishbone, and it's really just for the quarterback and fullback, and they might pitch us the ball every once in a while, and didn't want to be there, and just became really, really,
Mm,
really, really unhappy. And that unhappiness, which I now recognize, was I was basically depressed. You know,
mm,
I'm away from my mom. We don't have the money to fly home every holiday,
mm,
and so kids are taking off going home for these special breaks and spring break. I'm stuck at school. And I don't get to do what everybody else is doing. And plus, don't forget, I got to work because I got a son that was born. And
mm,
so the
mhm,
time to find who I was, my
mhm.
freshman and sophomore year, at least during the summertime, was working to support a son.
Yeah.
And so I lost a lot of that. You know, and then that that later, really just kind of tailed into my junior year. Because people think that uh, when they hear my name and they think about the 89 and 90 season that I had, that my life at CU was just grand. No one heard of me my junior year. Matter of fact, Eric Bieniemy has stepped up and was his sophomore year, which was my junior year. I was hardly ever playing. I wasn't even on the
Mm,
field, and one of the conversations I had, that's why I love my brothers from CU. We're going to always be so close for the rest of our lives.
mhm,
Eric Bieniemy pulled me aside after the last game of the season against Kansas State. It was a home game, and he said something that was so profound to me that I even told him about that when we was together a month or two ago. He said, "I'm disappointed in you."
mm, mm,
That broke my heart. He said, "I came here because of you. I could have went to USC, UCLA. I came here because you came to my high school my senior year in UNOC and convinced me to come here. And I had given up." He said, "I bet you put all your pads on and your helmet, knee pads, shoes, cleats." He said, "I bet you don't weigh 180 pounds." And joking around, I said, "Yeah, I do." 178 pounds for everything I had on.
wow.
And that conversation changed my life. But I got to rewind, because before Eric had that conversation with me, I've been arrested twice,
Mm,
in June of '88 and then again in October of '88. Uh, I just wanted out of Boulder. Now I'm arrested twice. I'm getting called niggers, and I'm fighting to protect what people are saying to me, and I'm arrested twice, and I just that '88, man, it's a miracle '89 happened.
And it's funny because it wasn't just you. There was all you guys were going through some stuff back then.
Yeah,
The Sports Illustrated piece comes out and all of that,
yeah,
and suddenly you guys are labeled, you know. And it's hard enough that you're doing it in Boulder, but now it's the national spotlight is on you, but not in a good way.
yeah.
And I'm not going to speak for you because I know the history, but how did y'all deal with that as people? Not football players, all that. How do you deal with it as people trying to just live your life?
That was the hardest part, is because you are walking down, not just on campus, at school, and people, oh, that must be one of them guys in that sports. They are assaulting people or raping people, or it was to I can only thing I can compare it to is possibly what my family went through walking down the streets of Alabama. How people look down on you, and I'm like, but these are the same people that was cheering for us, right?
Hmm.
And now I'm being called the N word, and I'm being jumped by white guys, and no one prepared me for this. This is how people are going to treat me. I've never been suspended a day of my life in high school, elementary school, junior high school. Never been in trouble. And now I'm in this environment where I'm being attacked verbally and physically, and I have to defend myself. And I feel like no one understood what we were going through. Eric being arrested, Kenavis McGee being arrested, JoJo Collins being arrested. I mean, the list goes on and on. We were just being arrested for stuff that wasn't true. And most of those things that they put in the Sports Illustrated, they didn't say that those charges was dismissed because it was unfounded. No, there was
Yeah,
no truth to it. But they don't write that. They just write what we were charged with. And now we're in this lineup. And my picture, fortunately, was never in there, but my name was in there. And
yeah,
so the long term effects, and to listen to, and to not listen but to understand and know that the police officers, not just the campus police but the Boulder police, were riding around with football programs in their cars. And if somebody said a suspect was a black person, they just whip out the football. Can you go through this? And anybody look familiar? So we were targets even before we did anything or anything ever happened. And so I'm just like, why are we here? We left LA to come here. Like OC, we left Houston to come here, and CJ, we left Detroit. And,
yeah.
why do we choose it? We could have played football anywhere and got to NFL. Why are we here dealing that don't even want us here? The police that don't want us here, you know? And we're so much ahead of our time. I'm saying not us, because there was black people entering campuses that's dealt with way worse than we had to deal with, in the 30s and the 40s or 50s or whatever. It dealt with way worse than we did. They feared their life.
Well,
We
think about the
feared.
kid at Iowa State who was killed playing football. That I didn't
Yeah,
realize that the stadium at Iowa State is named for Jack Trice, who got literally got killed on the field playing against Minnesota.
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff. But y'all deal with it. You're getting it on the field. You're getting it off the field. There's no room really to breathe. It sounds
I
like.
had, I had never been called out of my name even on the football field until we played Nebraska. I'm excuse me, not Nebraska. It was Oklahoma State. We got guys tackling us on the field, calling us the N word. And the guy that was the quarterback of that team is still the head coach of Oklahoma State right now.
Hmm.
This is what we deal with on campus, off campus, during games. And I'm just like, wow. And like I said earlier, I thought if you played this game good and you did the right thing, people, regardless of their feelings, are just going to love us. And Colorado, though I'm actually, there's duality in life, and there's duality in everything in life. And all those things that happened then is who I am to it made me who I am today. And
Yeah.
it taught me how to deal with people. We're chameleons. Us melanated people, man, we are chameleons. And it made me realize that we can live in all their worlds and survive. They can't live in our world and survive. So I had to teach myself, when I'm around this group of people, and I'm not a sellout by no means, but when I'm around these people, I got to be a certain way because
Yeah.
I know the stereotype. And when I'm
Hmm.
around this group of people, I can kind of relax a little bit because they understand me. And I had to make sure that, I got to play this role. I had to play this role, and being an athlete and being a good athlete, you have to become a good actor.
Yeah.
And trust me, there's guys on TV right now, great stars, NFL. If you really want to hear what they have to say, they will shut the network down.
Yeah.
But we have to live in this world where we have to pretend everything is okay, and then you get called, as I call it now, you get Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
When you speak your truth, what happens to you? and they're going to have their own narrative. Oh, he hates the military. No, who said it was about the military? Y'all
Mm-hmm.
made it that so you can have a reason. You have to
Yeah.
assassinate someone's character before you can attack them. And so they assassinated his character. So now
Yeah.
people who thought it was BS will go, oh, well, okay, well, that's why he did it. Okay, yeah, I hate him too. Once you assassinate a man's character, you can get him. They did
Yeah.
that with ML. They tried to do that MLK, Martin Luther King. They tried to do that with Malcolm X. They try to do that with Medgar Evers. You assassinate the character, then it makes it okay for people who may be on the fence to go, okay, well, he deserves that, And so that's what I felt was going on in Boulder during that time. They were in the news, in the Sports Illustrated article. They 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 assassinated. They tried to assassinate our character. They called us thugs. Thugs. We wouldn't even be where we are if we were thugs. We wouldn't have the grades and the athletic ability to even be on your campus in Boulder, Colorado, if we were thugs. Yes, we came from the inner city, but we were nowhere close to thugs. You know,
Why didn't you leave? Because a lot of guys wanted to, but y'all didn't leave. Why not?
I didn't leave because of my dad. My my dad didn't want me to go to Colorado. My mom didn't care. She just didn't want me to leave the state of California. I was just her baby. So she's just like, I
Yeah.
don't care where you go, just don't leave California. But my dad didn't want me to go there. My dad uh, knew a lot of people from alumni from USC and UCLA. And so that's where he wanted me to go.
Hmm.
Um, to your question of why I didn't leave, um, I considered it. I got it got out. There was some newspaper articles. Flannigan's considering transferring, and I already had been on the phone with at that time head coach of UCLA Terry Donahue, my buddy Eric Turner, who got rest in peace, who came out of there, played for the Cleveland Browns
Hmm.
and for the Raiders. He passed away some years ago, but I had been on the phone with them, and I was ready to go. Um, that was before the days where if I transferred, you had to sit out a year before you
Right.
can play again. And so I was considering that, and I said, well, that's a year for me to really focus and get my body right and get my weight up and try this back home. And then I talked to my dad,
Mm.
and my dad said, JJ, I get it. It hasn't been as smooth as you wanted to go. I let you make your own decision, and I understand what's going on, but you made this decision. And if you run from this decision, how many things else in your life are you going to run from? One of the things he told me was that no man really grows until he's willing to be uncomfortable.
Mm.
I had to be willing at that age, when I'm young, I have to be willing to be uncomfortable to grow. And uh, all the negative that happened, it allowed me to grow. How do you grow when everything is perfect? How do you learn when everything is perfect?
Yeah.
How do you increase your knowledge and your consciousness when there's no adversity? And leaving Colorado to go to USC, who's to say there just would have been another different set of circumstances that I would have to overcome? And so I chose to stay. I chose to listen to Eric. That time he said he was disappointed.
Hmm.
And I got with my strength conditioning coach, and I said, look, man, I don't want to be here. I said, but if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be the best damn running back that I could be. And I'm going to be who this school recruited to be. I don't want to ever go down as a bust, because if it's not for that one senior year, JJ Flannigan would have been a bust. I came into camp 30 pounds heavier. I came into camp, at least 300 to 400 pounds stronger in every lift category. And even all that, bro, I didn't even know if I was going to play because Eric Bieniemy was the man.
Yeah, it was.
Remember, he just came off a Heisman Trophy candidate sophomore year.
Yeah.
So what is JJ Flannigan going to do? And if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out the best I can pop, the best, the strongest, the fastest, the most mentally prepared I can be, even if I got to sit on the bench.
Okay.
And because I didn't want to be at this age of 56 years old right now saying that, man, I wish I would have just tried harder. I wish I would have just dealt with some people, and maybe I would have, my thought process would have been different, and all that, and um, I just recommitted and dedicated myself, and told myself to ignore the people that's calling me the N word, uh, the lack of support that I felt that I had from the school. No one came to my defense. The school didn't come to our defense. And how do you how do you stay motivated to play for a university that you don't feel that had your back? The best way to get it is, Coach Lucas used to always say, success is the best revenge. You don't have to say nothing. You don't have to, you don't have to do your job. Success is the best revenge. I showed them that the arrests, the Sports Illustrated articles, and everything I was dealing with mentally at that time was not the story of me. Mm-hmm. I'm bigger than that story. I had to learn that I have to write my own story. I had to be the author of my own life. And I was allowing other people to be the author of my book. And I decided to take control of my own book. And I decided okay, chapter 1 is now my senior year. Chapter 1 is when I show myself and everybody else that I understand life is hard. And I understand that you're going to deal with being in this skin. And I understand all of that. And I'm going to handle it as appropriately as I need to, and understand that that in every situation there's opportunity for growth. And my purpose on this earth is to grow. My purpose in this realm is to be bigger than my circumstances. And one of my models on my email, one of my emails is tagged, "Live life, don't let life live you." Yeah. And I was allowing life to live me. And I said, no, I'm taking this back over. I'm gonna live life to the fullest. And I know that there's nothing I can do or say that's going to make people that don't like me because of the color of my skin change. Mm-hmm. And since I can't change that, either I have a decision to be a victim, mm-hmm, or be a victor. And I chose to be a victor in everything, knowing that there's going to be consequences and issues and problems and circumstances I'm gonna have to deal with in life. But I do my best to find the best in people, mm-hmm, and that's why I appreciate the experiences that I had in Colorado, is because at the time I didn't want to do with anybody that didn't look like me, didn't trust you, don't want you around me. And if you are around me, it's only going to be for a certain amount of time. And this is strictly transactional. Mm-hmm. I'm doing something for you, you do for me. Okay, that's it. Mm-hmm. But there's been some really good people that understood where I was coming from, and treated me with that type of respect. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had that at Colorado. And it happened a little after that, but I didn't trust anyone white. I didn't trust people who said that they had my back, if they were white. That's from head coaches
Mm-hmm.
and assistant coaches, or professors,
Mm-hmm.
friends, anybody, you know. Um, and so I realized that everything is going to be based off my mindset. How do how do I change my view to me, about me, and who I am? And if I do that, whoever likes me likes me. Whoever don't. And 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 so I'm genuine with myself, and I think that I definitely I seek truly the God in me.
Mm-hmm.
And people take that for granted. They think it's just a scripture. He created us in his image. Well, if he's a God and he created me in his image, then I am also God, because the scripture says that ye are also God, and I am God. I am a God-like figure because my creator created me to be that, and to control my own destiny. And so I'm freer in that thought process now.
Yeah.
And that makes me the father that I am. That makes me, that makes me the brother I am, friend I am, because something worked, Brody.
Yeah.
Something worked, because now I'm the guy that, family members will call. Hey, we need your help. We need your advice. We need, it's because I allow myself to be open. But more importantly, I allow, through all my traumas in life, I allow myself to be non-judgmental.
Now talk about, because now we're talking about your transition into life now. Because the football, at least the college part of it, it's coming to an end. And you know, you got some choices to make. You still have the son to raise. You still have, those other responsibilities weighing on you. What did you see as your next move, and was it what you thought it would be, or you hoped it would be?
Um, After college,
Mm-hmm.
um, ooh, man, after college, having the opportunity to be drafted to the San Diego Chargers, you know, after doing nothing my freshman year because I couldn't play. Sophomore year was just getting my footing back because I hadn't played in almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Junior year, being semi-depressed and not hardly playing, to having a great year in senior year, you know, I thought I did everything it took, to get back to where I needed to be. And then the reality of football, NFL, I should say, hits, and then it's what they always say: NFL stands for not for long.
Not for long. Not for long.
and and in all fairness, though, it's not so much just the NFL. I think that I was just at that point in time, I had done so much to prove my worth at Colorado that last year, that I don't think I had a whole lot left to give in the
Mm.
sports world. And I found myself sitting in practices, getting a paycheck, a nice paycheck, going, I don't really want to be here.
Mm.
I don't think I love the sport as much as I love my opportunities and the possibilities of things I could do. And some people, their lives were always wrapped around, their life was football. And if they didn't have football, they had nothing. And I never felt that way.
Mm.
I truly felt football is great because it's allowing me this notoriety and allowing me to have a voice in areas that other people don't get a chance to have that voice. But I never
Mm.
felt that football was, it was never my end all, and my
Mm-hmm.
be all. It was never that for me. And so I walked away from the game at 23 years old.
Wow.
And so now we're talking about starting life. I got a son, and by this time I'm leaving football. Now I have a daughter, and I don't know, what I'm going to do with my life, because what people need to understand about athletes are this:
Mm-hmm.
when you've been told and it's been proven in the newspaper articles and the TV interviews all say you good at this,
Mm-hmm.
then the game is gone and you really don't know what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got to start all over again. Who is who is James Flannigan III? People know as JJ Flannigan. Who is this guy? What am I supposed to do? And where's my vision? Where where can I contribute to society as well as you know help continue to build who I am? And that started with mentoring children, mentoring kids, and I started to see high school kids and started to coach high school kids, and I understood them more. I
Mm-hmm.
understood because I was that kid who was a good athlete, but I had the influences of street life and the drug life and all these things and the pressures of all that, and not having a whole lot of money, and and the family not having a whole lot of money. And so I understand the temptations, and I always wanted to be able to tell kids, man, I get it. I get it. I understand you. I understand you. And I always wanted to make sure that I was able to tell not just high school athletes, just kids in that 14 to 18-year-old range that's in high school, that I get it. I understand the pressures. Had the kid in high school. Understand the pressures of girls
Mm-hmm.
and everything that comes with being this athlete, and trying to make good decisions at the same time trying to figure out who you are. And I don't think people truly understand that. I said, how do you make good decisions in the same time trying to figure out who you are? If I don't know who I am, then how do I know what decision I'm making? And if it's good or bad for me, you know? And so, uh, I started working with children, and I started to get my mojo back. I was like, man, they're listening to me,
Yeah.
because I think they listened to me because they knew that I was being honest with them, because kids can tell BS. These kids nowadays, they know who's real and who's not. And looked them in the eye and said, I know what it's like to want to go sell that bag because you need
Mm-hmm.
some extra money. And to buy something nice that your mom and dad couldn't afford you to give money to you for. Um, and so I wanted to relate. And so which transitioned to me into, like I said, continued in that realm, and to eventually start a mentoring business out
Mm-hmm.
here in Arizona that's still going today, that we started in 1998. Excuse me, I'm sorry, in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and to get messages on Facebook from kids I worked with in, whoa, 19 what I said, 1995. There are now 40-year-old men. And JJ, I remember you said this to me, man, and I use that to this day in my life. That you gave me these positive words, and you said this, and I'm listening to this now after all these years, and I'm going, they listened. These were
Mm-hmm.
some knuckleheads. Remember, these kids were kids who they were on their last chance. You
Yeah.
mess up here, this place I worked at, you go back to LA or all these places, you go back to prison.
Yeah.
This was your last chance. And to I just wanted those kids to understand that life that they were choosing,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't have to be. That's just what that's what the get out of that energy. That's what the streets are telling you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And know who you are, and things like that. And so
Mm-hmm.
so that just started my journey as far as who I am and what I wanted to do. And I know that I can influence people, and not manipulate people, but influence people to think differently.
Yeah.
I'm not here to change your religion. I ain't here to change your politics. I ain't here to change none of that. I'm here to listen and understand that whatever thoughts you have is no judgment here.
Yeah.
And certain things in our society has allowed people to judge us, and we can't be who we need to be and who we need to be to grow. Everything we do is being criticized, and and so I just wanted people to make sure that if they experience me in any way, whether via phone, Zoom, in person,
Hmm.
that if you cross me, you're going to get some words of encouragement. And that's my purpose. My
Yeah.
purpose, and I'm okay. And I can smile now because
Hmm.
at 23 years old, I thought, man, I'm supposed to be a millionaire. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
never have to work another day in my life. This football's going to do this. And my spirit never really had that in me. My spirit was to continue to grow and do the things you're doing. Give people stories. Let me hear what you have to say. What was your experience like? And
Yeah.
so I wanted to make sure that I continue to encourage, not just the young people. There's some people our age that still need to be woken up,
Yeah.
and they're walking around in this phase that, I don't think I need to do anything for anybody else. What is your purpose but to help other people and to
Yeah.
grow? So
Yeah, it's not related, but it is a kick in the way. You and I had talked offline about a young man that you knew, um, and who's no longer with us. And you talk about with Rashawn Salam, all that he had that success early on. He had that success in college, but it didn't. For those who don't know, we lost Salam, Rashawn. He took his own life, um, and I often wonder, had he had someone who could mentor him, like what you're talking about, would his life have been different? Man, maybe I'm reaching by saying, but I'm gonna get your thoughts about because you knew that young man,
yeah,
you know,
um,
and
he he was the example of what I just said, that when the game is now gone and the game is taken away, we don't know who we are. And people think, oh, yeah, sure, it's just a former athlete. No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. We don't know who we are. And I dealt with that. I dealt with that guilt because I spoke to him, 3 or 4 months before this happened. And the guilt I felt was, all this encouragement and motivation, the word, the words, or the question, "How are you?"
yeah,
People answer that question in such general, "Oh, I'm good," or "I'm
yeah,
okay." "How you doing?" I'm great." But we don't really ask, "How are you?
yeah,
How are you here?
yeah,
How? What's your mental state? What's your thought process? How are you doing? How are you dealing with life? How can I help you? How can I encourage you? And I allowed that conversation to be about football days and not about life.
yeah,
And how are you handling being this Heisman Trophy winner, so celebrated athlete, one of the top honors you can possibly get in the sports world, and not being in the NFL right now, and not having some successful career in sports broadcasting? you know, I think about questions I could have asked that young brother, and I told myself then I will never, ever, ever allow that to happen again. And anyone I come across, I'm going to make sure I see how they're doing. How are you? How are you coping in this realm of life that we're living? And it's not always easy. Philip Lindsay, who came out of Colorado and had a great career with the Broncos, and before you knew it, he was here and he was gone. And so when I saw him this past year, one of the games, he was with his beautiful child, and I just said, "Hey, how are you, man? How are you? How is how are you handling the transition of doing something great you've done all your life into starting over and figuring out who you are, you know, and he couldn't. I don't think he really answered the question because he probably looked at it as, and because when something is snatched away from you, because none of us voluntarily walked away from the game
Yeah.
before the age of 30. The
Yeah.
game, the game walks away from you.
Yeah.
And so I encourage, him and other athletes, and even my own son-in-law, who was a second round draft pick for the Miami Dolphins, and um, was had a great 7 years and blew both knees
Mm.
on the same play, and his career is over. On the verge of a multi-million-dollar contract
Yeah.
with the 49ers at the time, and knees are gone. And so, I would like to say I was there as he transitioned to his new career and selling $1 million homes and real estate and buying properties and flipping properties, and even he said that it was a transition when the game walks away. He did the same thing I did with a lot of athletes. You'll find that a lot of athletes, when the game is taken away so quickly, um, that they don't watch the game. I don't think I watched the
Yeah.
NFL game the year after I stopped playing,
Mm.
because then I felt like I was still holding on to what could have been instead of focusing on what I can need to do.
Right.
And once I started to figure out who I was, and build my life to where I need to build my life, then I was able to watch it again. Rashawn never really, I don't think he truly had the correct support. Um, because sometimes when you're as famous as him, people just want to be around because of what you've done,
Right.
and the lack of empathy of what you're going through and what you're trying to do is really not there. And like I said earlier, the infamous question is, what happened? And like something terrible happened. Like your life is over, and so you start to believe that. You know, um, you don't ask questions like that of people like Tom Brady or even Emmitt Smith. They got a chance to walk away from the game when they was ready
Right.
to. But when you're young and the game walks away from you, what do you do next? This is all I trained my body and my mind to do since I was a young kid, and now it's
Right.
gone. And Rashawn, I don't think he was able to process that correctly, and his life at some point began to look like a failure. And when he got down, he was not able to get himself back up, because I've been through that transition, and I'm talking about some of the good things I have in my life. There's still been bad things, you know, um, going through a divorce, at 29 years old. And part of that is because when the game walks away from you, I didn't know who I was anymore. And the people around me didn't recognize me anymore, because who am I if I don't have football?
Yeah.
Who am I without the crowd cheering? Who am I without doing the interviews, and when the quiet hits, reality sets in. Almost in the term of, when someone passes away and everyone's there with you, Brody, when you're going through this loss, but then the funeral's over and then the repast is over, and then it's just you at home.
Yeah.
How do I process this? Because everyone's going to leave and go back to their lives. And so this game of football, it it becomes who people are, and not just a part of what they do.
Right.
In this life, I had to realize that football was just something I did. I got more to offer. And when you don't get to the point where you feel like your life has more to offer than the sport you were known for, you get lost. And Rashawn got lost. And I wish that myself or other people could have recognized that soon enough, and been there to help him.
But you know where I am now, right? You know I'm about to do to you right now.
What's that?
I'm putting you in that room now, bro.
Uh oh. Here we
putting
go.
you at that table, and in walks 18-year-old James Flannigan III. What are you talking to him about?
Wow. Um, so much. It's so much because of how I think now. But if I can go sit down with a young 18-year-old James Flannigan III, I would tell him to keep his eyes open, keep your circle amongst people that truly respect you. Because if people around you respect you, it doesn't matter if they agree with your opinion or not. The respect is there that they'll listen, and know that I was living a part of my life where I thought everybody was against me. I thought Boulder was against me. Um, and I would say that to figure out people's motivation in life, because everybody energy doesn't is not the same. You can walk into a room and you can tell when the energy changes for some people. And it's like, whoa, I got to get out of here. This person is way too negative. This person is this. I just can't be around this. I would tell that young guy to be observant of people. And if you can be observant of people and know who people are and know that people are just who they are, then you'll
Mm-hmm.
stop judging and start getting mad at people. It's like, well, this person, they used to do this and they used to do. I said, that has nothing to do with you. People are who they are. Your adjustment in this life is to decide if you want to continue that in your life or continue to be around that or remove yourself. Because I would definitely tell myself at that age, you are the author of your own book. Don't let anyone write your story. If there's situations going on that you feel uncomfortable with, then rewrite your story. Rewrite the people that's negative out of your life. And sometimes the most difficult thing that I've had to find out is sometimes that's your own family. Sometimes your own family can be a hindrance in your growth because of what they've taught you. So, young James, experience life, take nothing serious, and grow. And understand that there's going to be people that's going to break your heart. And that was the most difficult thing that I think I would have to tell myself, is that people I thought I trusted or I could trust in this world, um, they break your heart, and but not to hate them, because they came for a reason. They the people that broke my heart, and disappointed me, also helped me grow. So there's that duality back again. So everything that I thought that was wrong with someone or with me, that I still try to find a positive, and
Mm-hmm.
to do everything you can to find a positive out of everything in life. Because man, I hated the police. I hated authority figures, to be put in jails when I didn't do anything. I just had a disdain for, and I began to hate people, and I didn't come back to who I am right now until I learned to let go of a lot of hate and resentment, because the only person that was really hurting was me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's be one of the last thing I would tell myself: learn to let things go. Learn to let things go and grow from it, learn from it, but then you have to let it go. The old saying we used to say, chew the meat and spit out the bone. Chew and take what you need and spit out this other thing, because I spent too much of my young life hating, disliking people, and I didn't have to do that. All those people were doing was just being who they were. I had to choose to remove myself so I can have peace. There was times I stayed in a situation trying to fight it, thinking that was going to get me peace. And so for me, um, man, just I would tell myself to open your eyes and understand people are who they are, but it doesn't dictate who you are. Move the way you need to move in this world. And if I had done that, I think, I love where I'm at. Because if I say that, Brody, it's like I'm saying that I'm disappointed in where I am, and I'm not. I am where I am because of that. But I do think in saying that, had I thought like this then, my trajectory of where I was going would have
Hmm.
been different. I
Yeah.
still got here. I just had to do this to
Right.
get here
You get there.
instead of this. And so, but like I said, how do you grow if you're not uncomfortable? And I had to learn to be uncomfortable. James Flannigan III, 18 years old, be prepared to be uncomfortable in this world
Yeah.
because your growth is in that uncomfortableness.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Man, I appreciate it. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you,
man.
man.